The first reports arrived quietly, almost dismissively, as though no one on Earth needed to pay them any attention. Satellites picking up distant signals from the Drellian fleet on the outer rim of the Sol system, their ships glinting in the vacuum like shards of some alien nightmare. Humanity's leaders convened in a tight, understated council, a mix of military strategists, scientists, diplomats, and representatives from the United Nations, faces etched with calm determination, each aware that the galaxy had long assumed Earth to be primitive, vulnerable, and inconsequential, that our weapons were outdated, our technology unremarkable, and our civilization too fractured to respond coherently to an interstellar threat. Yet within the quiet corridors of command centers, underground bunkers, and orbital stations, humans have been preparing, studying the Drellians' movements, cataloging their weaknesses, simulating their tactics, and refining the algorithms of war and diplomacy that might one day confront such arrogance. On the Drellian side, their commanders, sleek, imposing, and absolutely certain of victory, convened aboard their flagship, a towering construct of black metal and pulsing light, exuding confidence as they transmitted orders to surrounding fleets, expecting nothing more than the predictable surrender of a species they had historically dismissed as primitive scavengers, a species whose only defense lay in numbers and the hope that no one cared enough to engage. Seriously, and yet the first human countermeasures, subtle, almost imperceptible at first, began to ripple through communications networks, defense satellites quietly reconfiguring to optimize energy distribution, orbital lasers adjusting trajectories, sensor arrays interpreting the Drellians approaching ways that no one outside the scientific community had realized possible. As the fleet drew closer, the first contact drones approached the outer perimeter of humanity's defensive sphere, broadcasting signals meant to intimidate, to test our response, and to provoke fear. But humanity's response was neither panic nor hesitation. It was a meticulously coordinated dance of strategy, exploiting the arrogance of the attackers, deploying decoy formations while real forces recalibrated in real time. And when the first human ships emerged from the shadows of the asteroid belt, cloaked in advanced stealth technology unknown to the Drellians, their movements were so precise, so unnervingly calculated, that the alien commanders immediately sensed something anomalous, a whisper of doubt that had no place in their doctrine, and then the humans struck with a precision that defied expectation, disabling critical nodes on the Drellian ships without a single casualty on Earth's side, a demonstration of tactical genius that sent waves of disbelief through the alien ranks, causing the initial arrogance of conquest to fracture into confusion, their calculations no longer reliable, their assumptions about human weakness crumbling. Simultaneously, on Earth, engineers and scientists monitored the engagement with clinical focus, refining systems that combined artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, and decades of classified research into a seamless, adapted defense network, while political leaders ensured that no panic spread through the civilian population, keeping the public informed enough to inspire confidence without revealing the full extent of humanity's hidden capabilities. The narrative carefully managed to convey resilience rather than fear, because even as the Drellians recalibrated and attempted to retaliate with force, their weapon systems malfunctioned under the unexpected precision of human countermeasures, targeting arrays collapsing under coordinated disruption, shields faltering at key junctions, and for the first time, the alien commanders realized that Earth had not only anticipated their approach but had been preparing for this scenario for decades, cultivating an unseen strength, a depth of strategy and ingenuity that far exceeded the Galactic powers' assumptions. And as the initial skirmish concluded with minimal human loss and maximum Drellian disarray, the message was clear across the stars. Humanity did not surrender, humanity did not yield, and humanity's response to provocation was not measured in words or threats, but in the unthinkable demonstration of capability, precision, and resolve that left the Drellians and the galaxy at large staggering, reconsidering everything they thought they knew about the species they had underestimated for so long, a species whose hidden potential had remained obscured until now, a species whose patience, intelligence, and unity were not weaknesses but unparalleled strengths. And as communications channels opened with hasty apologies and nervous requests for parley, humans maintained composed front, knowing that the real negotiation, the real lesson, had only just begun, and that the universe had not yet seen the full measure of what it meant to provoke a species that refused to surrender. As the stunned Drellian commanders struggled to comprehend the audacity of humanity, their communications flooded with conflicting reports from skirmish drones and reconnaissance satellites, each indicating more anomalies than the last, with entire strike groups immobilized by subtle manipulations of electromagnetic fields, navigation systems overridden without warning. An automated defense platform suddenly reproposed to defend against attacks the aliens had never anticipated. While aboard Earth's orbital command stations, humans worked in synchrony, their minds trained not just for war but for the intricate choreography of multi-layered strategy, blending centuries of accumulated knowledge in mathematics, physics, and tactical reasoning with cutting-edge AI predictive models that allowed them to anticipate Drellian maneuvers before they were executed. And when the first human boarding pod silently attached to derelict enemy ships, disabling their engines and reprogramming their guidance protocols, the psychological impact on the Drellians was devastating, shattering confidence and seeding paranoia within their ranks, making every decision an exercise in doubt, hesitation, and second-guessing, because the humans had made it unmistakably clear that they were not reacting impulsively but had foreseen every conceivable contingency, every likely response, and had layered their strategy to counter it. And simultaneously on Earth, news of the initial success, carefully disseminated through controlled channels, inspired a sense of unity and resolve among the populace, reaffirming the leaders' belief that humanity's strength lay not just in technology but in the coordination, resilience, and ingenuity of its people, as scientists and engineers monitored alien communications attempting to decipher the unexpected disruptions, discovering that the Drellians had no prior records or simulations that could predict human strategy, while field commanders prepared to escalate the offensive in measured stages, targeting supply chains, communications hubs, and fleet coordination nodes with surgical precision, leaving minimal collateral damage yet maximizing disorientation and operational paralysis. And as the humans launched a sequence of synchronized counterattacks, blending stealth drones, orbital lasers, and decoy maneuvers, the Drellians realized with growing horror that every assumption they had made about human behavior, response time, and technological capability was catastrophically flawed, and when diplomats aboard Earth's massive interstellar embassies prepared contingency communication for emergency negotiations, they did so from a position of undeniable strength, not fear, ready to dictate terms from a place of calculated authority, as the first overtures for ceasefire were met with a calm yet unyielding human response emphasizing restraint, strategy, and the unshakable assertion that while humanity did not seek unnecessary war, any aggression will be met with relentless precision, and as fleets engaged in tense standoff maneuvers near the outer colonies, both sides realized that the unthinkable had occurred. The species they had deemed weak, predictable, and primitive had demonstrated a capacity for strategy, unity, and technological mastery that rivaled the greatest powers of the galaxy, causing the Drellians to frantically revise their tactical doctrines, reassess leadership protocols, and question the intelligence that had led them to underestimate humans in the first place, while Earth scientists and military strategists quietly documented every move, preparing for the next phase of the engagement, knowing that the display so far had been merely an introduction, controlled revelation of human capability, and that the universe had only begun to understand what it meant to provoke a species that would neither surrender nor falter under pressure. And as the Drellians grappled with the psychological shock of repeated failures, the humans maintained calm, focused execution, and a measured escalation designed to secure victory without unnecessary loss, leaving the alien commanders to confront the terrifying realization that the era of dismissing humanity was over, that their miscalculations had opened the door to consequences they could not contain, and that from the very first contact, the unthinkable response had reshaped the balance of power across this sector of the galaxy, a warning that would echo for generations among all who might consider challenging Earth's resolve. With the Drellians reeling from their earlier miscalculations, humans shifted from precise defensive maneuvers to a coordinated, multi-pronged offensive that leveraged every hidden advantage Earth had cultivated over decades, dispatching stealth cruisers from hidden orbital hangars, each vessel equipped with experimental propulsion systems capable of rapid directional changes that made them almost impossible to target, while advanced AI drones executed synchronized strikes against critical points in the Drellian fleet, severing communications lines and redirecting power flows in a way that caused cascading system failures. And as human long-range scanners identified isolated alien vessels attempting to regroup, tactical teams on Earth orchestrated simultaneous attacks, using quantum-encrypted signals to coordinate movements faster than the Drellians could comprehend, all while deploying decoys that mimic human fleet formations in order to draw the enemy into traps where ambushes awaited. And on the Drellian flagship, the Supreme Commander watched in disbelief as previously intact battle lines collapsed without explanation, his officers shouting conflicting data about sensor anomalies, system malfunctions, and erratic attacks, each failure compounding their panic, forcing split-second decisions that only worsened their position. While back on Earth, strategists monitored every development with calm precision, ready to exploit every opening, every hesitation, every misstep with surgical execution, knowing that the human strength lay not just in raw firepower but in adaptability, foresight, and an uncanny ability to predict enemy behavior. And as boarding parties silently attached to crippled Drellian vessels, they deployed rapid response teams that neutralized enemy crews and reprogrammed vital systems, turning once threatening weapons against the very fleets that had launched them, leaving alien officers scrambling to maintain control, their confidence unraveling with each passing minute. And while the humans maintained relentless pressure, Earth's political and scientific leaders simultaneously prepared a broader message for the galactic community, one emphasizing restraint, rationality, and the defense of sovereignty, subtly demonstrating that humanity's approach was measured, deliberate, and morally grounded. Even as their tactical brilliance overwhelmed an opponent who had assumed an easy victory, and as human forces pushed deeper into the Drellian perimeter, the aliens' desperation grew, their fleets fractured, coordination collapsed, and the first whispers of mutiny began to spread among ranks that had never doubted themselves, while Earth's strategists continued to balance aggression with restraint, ensuring minimal civilian and environmental impact while maximizing the psychological effect on the enemy. And as orbital bombardments precisely neutralized key logistics hubs without collateral devastation, the Drellians began to comprehend a terrifying truth. Humanity had not merely prepared for war. They had mastered the art of controlled escalation, had anticipated every possible gambit, and now demonstrated an ability to fight not just harder, but smarter, faster, and more cohesively than any other civilization in the galaxy. And by the time the first full-scale fleet engagement began in the outer system, the Drellians were already reeling under a combination of shock, strategic paralysis, and the dawning realization that they had not underestimated humans. They had underestimated the very definition of human ingenuity, patience, and resilience, and the psychological toll of this revelation was so profound that even their most seasoned commanders began to second-guess every command, while humans, calm and calculated, advanced systematically, combining technological superiority with tactical brilliance, showing the galaxy for the first time that Earth was no longer a backwater world to be ignored, that the species it had dismissed as weak was capable of turning the tide of interstellar conflict with nothing more than ingenuity, coordination, and a measured, unyielding will. And as the Drellians struggled to regain control, the humans' offensive was not only dismantling fleets and infrastructure, but rewriting the rules of engagement, leaving the alien empire to confront a reality in which the unthinkable, the complete overturning of assumed power dynamics, was now an undeniable, irreversible truth. And the message sent throughout the galaxy was stark, chilling, and unmistakable. Humanity would never surrender, and any who provoked them would learn too late the devastating consequences of misjudging a species that had kept its true strength carefully hidden until the moment it mattered most. As the Drellians struggled to stabilize their fractured fleets, humans shifted seamlessly from tactical strikes to strategic maneuvers, exploiting the chaos they had deliberately seeded, their orbital command centers coordinating assault across multiple fronts with precision that no alien logic could anticipate, and while some Drellian ships attempted to flee, they found themselves intercepted by human interceptors that had already calculated every probable escape route, creating an invisible net of containment that neutralized any hope of retreat, while Earth's engineers deployed adaptive defense grids around colonies and research outposts, ensuring that no counterattack could penetrate the planetary shields. And as humans began utilizing experimental gravity manipulation technology to subtly redirect enemy vessels into natural hazards like asteroid belts and gas clouds, the Drellian commanders faced unprecedented losses, their pride and doctrine crumbling under the relentless, methodical application of human ingenuity. And on the ground, Earth scientists transmitted real-time data to commanders, allowing human forces to adjust tactics instantaneously, combining quantum computing with predictive algorithms that accounted for both alien psychology and mechanical limitations, so that every maneuver was not only precise but psychologically disorienting, creating fear, hesitation, and distrust among the Drellian ranks, and as boarding team sees abandoned capital. Ships? They discovered caches of experimental weaponry and navigation technology that humans quickly reverse-engineered, turning these systems into force multipliers that amplified their already overwhelming advantage, while the Drellians' attempts to regroup only played into a larger, human-designed orchestration of deception, with fake retreats, feigned vulnerabilities, and decoy transmissions luring alien fleets into traps from which escape was impossible, and as the Outer Rim colonies reported successive waves of precision strikes against critical supply lines, the Drellians realized they were not merely losing a battle. They were losing their entire theater of operations, and panic began to erode the cohesion of their leadership councils, rival factions accusing each other of incompetence, mutiny spreading quietly among crews who could not reconcile their doctrine with the inexplicable skill and foresight of human forces, while Earth political leaders ensured that diplomatic channels remained open, offering terms framed as reason and fair, emphasizing that humanity's goal was not wanton conquest but deterrence and protection of sovereignty, yet every overture carried the unmistakable weight of demonstrated power, a warning that any future aggression would be met with overwhelming precision. And as human fleets pushed deeper into contested space, deploying autonomous drones capable of repairing and replicating themselves mid-battle, the Drellians faced a technological nightmare. Realizing that they had underestimated the depth of human innovation, the resilience of their species, and the foresight with which humans had anticipated the entire campaign, and as orbital bombardments neutralized fortified positions without civilian casualties, alien soldiers and commanders alike experienced a psychological collapse. Unable to comprehend that a species they had dismissed as backward and disorganized could operate with such cohesion, creativity, and ruthlessness, and as the first attempts to surrender were made, humans, calm and authoritative, dictated terms that ensured strategic advantage without unnecessary destruction, leaving the Drellians to grasp a humbling and terrifying truth. The universe had misjudged humanity at every turn, assuming weakness where there was extraordinary resilience, assuming predictability where there was adaptive brilliance. And now, in the aftermath of the first decisive phase of the conflict, the galaxy had witnessed not just a military victory but a revelation, a demonstration that humans, when provoked and prepared, could achieve the unthinkable, reshape power dynamics, and enforce consequences with an elegance, intelligence, and precision that left the Drellians and every other interstellar civilization observing the conflict, questioning every assumption about the species they had once dismissed so easily. By the time human fleets reached the inner systems of the Drellian territories, the alien empire was already fraying under the weight of psychological and logistical collapse, their leaders desperate to regroup yet constrained by broken communications, disrupted supply lines, and ships turned against them by human boarding teams who had mastered the art of subverting alien technology without detection, and as humans implemented a series of carefully timed orbital blockades and interference fields, the Drellians found themselves trapped in a web of precision-crafted containment, unable to mount coordinated attacks or even retreat without walking directly into calculated ambushes. While back on Earth, teams of engineers and scientists monitored thousands of battlefront variables in real time, optimizing fleet movements, weapon deployment, and resource allocation with a level of synchronization that rendered even the most seasoned Drellian commanders helpless. And as humans began deploying newly developed energy manipulation devices capable of disabling engines, weapons, and defensive shields simultaneously, the aliens' confidence disintegrated further, forcing panicked orders that only accelerated their disorganization. And on the strategic command decks of Earth, humans reviewed live feeds from reconnaissance drones embedded deep within enemy strongholds, feeding tactical algorithms that instantly identified weaknesses, structural vulnerabilities, and opportunities to co-opt alien technology for their own use, while propaganda broadcasts, carefully calibrated for psychological impact, emphasize human resolve, ingenuity, and mercy, sowing doubt among the Drellians' populace about their leadership's competence, and as covert strike teams infiltrated orbital fortresses and research facilities, they not only neutralized key military assets but also captured critical intelligence on alien technology and communications protocols, which was immediately integrated. into Earth's command network to further amplify human advantages, creating a feedback loop of strategic dominance that the Drellians could neither anticipate nor counter. And as the first full-scale engagement reached the Drellians' capital system, humans demonstrated the pinnacle of tactical brilliance, a combination of feigned retreats, precision orbital strikes, and automated drone swarms that rendered even the most fortified positions vulnerable, while simultaneously preserving infrastructure and minimizing casualties among civilian populations to reinforce the message that humanity's power was tempered with discipline and foresight, not recklessness. And as the alien high command convened in desperation, attempting to formulate a last-ditch strategy, they discovered that every contingency they had prepared had already been accounted for, neutralized, or exploited, leaving them paralyzed, with crews on multiple ships mutinying or surrendering mid-operation, unable to comprehend the depth of human foresight, patience, and strategic planning. And as Earth's leaders prepared communications to announce controlled, yet unmistakable victory, the Drellians faced an existential crisis, realizing that their assumptions about dominance, intelligence, and preparedness had been catastrophically flawed, that they had provoked a species whose ingenuity, resilience, and unity were far beyond their understanding, and that the unthinkable, the complete dismantling of their fleet and control over their inner systems by a species they had considered inferior, was now a reality, a lesson in hubris and misjudgment that would echo across the galaxy as humans, calm, precise, and resolute, solidified their position not just as victors of this campaign, but as a force whose restraint, discipline, and overwhelming capability demanded respect, caution, and a permanent re-evaluation of what it meant to challenge Earth. And by the time the Drellians began to grasp the magnitude of their errors, it was too late. The unthinkable response had already rewritten the rules of engagement, shifted the balance of power, and forever marked humanity as a species capable of extraordinary mastery over both strategy and consequence. As human forces pressed deeper into the Drellian central territories, the alien empire teetered on the edge of collapse, its fleets fragmented, supply lines obliterated, and command structures fractured under the relentless, methodical pressure of Earth's coordinated offensive. And while the Drellian High Command scrambled to issue orders, their directives were intercepted, rerouted, and rendered useless by human cyber warfare units who had long anticipated the communication networks' vulnerabilities, simultaneously launching precision strikes against orbital fortresses, energy grids, and propulsion hubs to prevent regrouping. And as humans deployed experimental cloaking drones capable of infiltrating heavily fortified installations undetected, the Drellians' most secure position fell silently, their crews either incapacitated or captured before realizing the breach. While Earth's tactical analysts continuously recalibrated offensive patterns, exploiting even minor hesitation or miscalculation, creating a cascading effect that left the aliens unable to predict or respond to unfolding events, and as orbital bombardment selectively neutralized weapon systems without damaging civilian infrastructure, the Drellians experienced not only military defeat but profound psychological disorientation. Their belief in superiority shattered as each engagement revealed the depth of human foresight, adaptability, and technological mastery, and simultaneously, Earth's leaders prepared a controlled demonstration of human capability, launching coordinated displays of energy manipulation, defensive shielding, and AI-driven fleet maneuvers that made clear to the galaxy that humanity's power was precise, disciplined, and beyond conventional understanding. While boarding teams continued to neutralize key installations and repurpose alien technology, turning the Drellians' own assets against them, leaving the remaining commanders scrambling, issuing frantic, conflicting orders that only hastened the collapse of cohesion within their ranks. And as humans consolidated control over the inner systems, they systematically enforced containment of rogue elements, cutting off escape routes, isolating remaining resistance, and demonstrating a level of strategic patience and efficiency that left the aliens demoralized and defeated without the need for total destruction, while simultaneously projecting an image of ethical restraint and intelligence mastery, sending messages through intercepted communications emphasizing humanity's rationality, discipline, and willingness to limit unnecessary destruction, reinforcing the unthinkable reality that the species they had provoked could dominate the battlefield with surgical precision while maintaining moral and strategic superiority. And as the Drellians convened desperate emergency councils, it became clear that the alien empire had underestimated humans in every conceivable way, from technological ingenuity and adaptive tactics to psychological insight and strategic patience, and as humans orchestrated the final stage of the campaign, neutralizing remaining fleet elements, securing critical installations, and establishing orbital control across all contested systems, the Drellians finally grasped the catastrophic scope of their misjudgment, understanding that humanity's hidden potential, long ignored and assumed negligible, had been revealed in full, a combination of foresight, coordination, resilience, and disciplined execution that no civilization had anticipated, and as Earth's forces stood poised over the remnants of the Drellian Empire, the unthinkable response they had delivered had not only achieved total operational dominance but redefined the perception of human capability across the galaxy, leaving a permanent mark on every civilization that had ever underestimated the patience, ingenuity, and calculated power of a species that refused to surrender. And as the Drellians submitted to terms that ensured survival but stripped them of strategic initiative, humanity's message resonated clearly and irrevocably. Provocation against Earth carried consequences that were precise, overwhelming, and inescapable, and the galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating the species that had turned arrogance into its own undoing. With the remnants of the Drellian Empire reeling from defeat, humanity transitioned from relentless offensive operations to the careful consolidation of control, securing key systems, restoring order to occupied colonies, and systematically disabling any remaining pockets of resistance while simultaneously offering the alien leadership terms that preserved life but stripped them of the capacity to threaten again. And as Drellian commanders came face to face with the full scope of their miscalculations, they were forced to acknowledge a truth that had been invisible to them for centuries. Humans were not merely adaptive or clever. They were a species defined by patience, ingenuity, discipline, and the ability to transform perceived weakness into decisive strength. And as Earth's leaders communicated these terms across the galaxy, projecting calm authority and technological mastery, the message resonated with every civilization observing the outcome, demonstrating that aggression against humanity invited precision, foresight, and consequences that were absolute and inescapable, while human fleets, having secured orbital supremacy, began methodical deconstruction of remaining war machinery, converting former battle zones into habitable stations and research facilities, ensuring that victory was not only tactical but sustainable and constructive. And on the psychological plane, the Drellians endured a profound reckoning, their pride shattered, their assumptions about power, intelligence, and predictability dismantled, and their entire civilization forced to reconsider the species they had long dismissed, while humans, calm and composed, oversaw the reconstruction of critical infrastructure, the re-establishment of trade and communication routes, and the integration of captured technology into scientific programs that further amplified Earth's capabilities, all without arrogance or unnecessary cruelty, reinforcing the HFY principle that true strength combined power, intelligence, and restraint. And as diplomats conveyed humanity's philosophy to surviving Drellian leaders, it became clear that the galaxy would never again underestimate Earth, that a species once presumed vulnerable had now demonstrated not only the ability to repel aggression but to reshape interstellar power dynamics through strategy, unity, and unyielding resolve. And as humans returned to a state of watchful vigilance rather than conquest, the Drellians, humbled and transformed by the experience, began the slow process of learning respect, understanding that provocation had consequences measured not in anger or chaos but in the precise, disciplined, and unthinkable application of human capability. And by the time the first celebrations quietly began on Earth, reflecting a species that had endured, adapted, and overcome, the galaxy had been irrevocably altered, not just by the outcome of battle but by the revelation that humanity's true strength lay in its patience, intelligence, and moral clarity, a reminder to every civilization that underestimating Earth was not merely a mistake, it was a catastrophe, and as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, humanity's unthinkable response had cemented its place as a dominant, respected, and unassailable force in the galaxy, a species whose resolve, ingenuity, and courage had forever reshaped the perception of what it meant to be human, leaving the Drellians and all others who might watch or listen a lesson etched into the cosmos. Never provoke a species that refuses to surrender, and never misjudge the quiet patience of those who have spent centuries preparing for the unthinkable.